Jason Rzucidlo reporting from the Automotive News World Congress. I'm here inside the Renaissance Center for the special dinner and event. Stay tuned for remarks by Roger Penske, CEO of the Penske Corporation, and by Sergio Marchionne, who's the CEO of the Chrysler Group, LLC. Stay tuned for those remarks plus much more right here on AmericaJR.com.
And that choice in turn depends on the choices that we will make in several key areas that are now in flux. They begin with what can be in times of recovery a seductive temptation. Growth on paper rather than growth for a purpose. Growth that inflates numbers rather than growth that drives value. The choice is this: automakers can get bigger in order to get better, to look better, or we can get bigger because we are better. Consumers have told us that bigger isn't necessarily better for cars. And this is also true for companies. Growth must create value rather than attempting to be a substitute for it. And it's a simple fact of which our industry lost sight very many years ago. Our industry has embarked on M&A sprees and excursions into other businesses. We have consolidated brands and consolidated companies and consolidated the consolidations. And yet most of these efforts were geared towards size alone, which is exactly why they failed. They made automakers into rambling ranch houses onto which one room after another was added, with no rational architecture uniting the whole. Our industry got into businesses that we did not know how to run, and in doing so we created clumsy bureaucracies that impeded innovation in what should have been our core expertise, making cars that consumers want to buy. We have made, in the past, our businesses totally unmanageable and inexplicable to our customers. In Europe, the number of brands has shrunk from 58 in 1964 to only 22 today. And yet, in the last 20 years, the number of different models has surged from 72 to more than 200. Instead of merely making companies bigger, our industry should think in terms of strategic partnership that enhance our ability to deliver what customers want and achieve synergies, improve efficiencies, and lower costs. And that's what we're striving to accomplish through the Fiat-Chrysler relationship. There are those who say that a transatlantic alliance is bound to fail, that Chrysler cannot Americanize Fiat, and that Fiat can't succeed as a schoolmaster in Detroit. If that was in fact our intention, they would be absolutely right. But this relationship is about partnership. It's not about patronizing. It's about listening, not dictating. Any alliance forged across cultures must, because attempting to impose answers across cultures just will fail. It antagonizes, it builds higher walls. If by contrast, tearing down walls, an imperative on which not just Fiat and Chrysler's futures, but our entire industry survival demands an ethic of humility and of patience, of learning and of listening. It requires that each partner put national pride aside and seek to gain a deeper understanding of culture, tastes, and expectations. And that approach doesn't always yield immediate results, but results achieved through long labor are also long-lasting. And these are the kinds of results which we aspire to achieve through the Fiat-Chrysler alliance. It's been said that Fiat is supposed to save Chrysler, but that fundamentally mistakes the purpose of our alliance, which is that these two companies offer unique benefits to each other, and that together we can achieve possibilities that would elude either one of us alone. Many new Chrysler cars will soon be built on Fiat platforms. Fiat engines will appear in many Chrysler vehicles too, and in fact we'll be making a 1.4-liter fire engine not far from here at the South Global Engine Manufacturing Alliance plant in Dundee. Chrysler, meanwhile, is helping to facilitate the reintroduction of Fiat into the US market. We're combining Fiat's expertise in the smaller car segments with Chrysler's in the medium and in the large segments. And most important, we're achieving economies of scale that will generate substantial benefits for us both. The key to this partnership is that Fiat and Chrysler fit not as patches stitched together to enlarge a quilt, but as pieces of a puzzle that form a coherent whole. This is a partnership in the truest of senses. It's an alliance forged in mutual opportunity. It is growth for a purpose, growth that will create value rather than inflate numbers, and it is, I believe, the kind of alliance that must replace our industry's long tradition of mergers for the sake of growth alone, which in the long term produce no growth at all. And speaking of value, the second choice that our industry now faces is how to coax customers back into the market. If transient gains would satisfy us, then by all means, let's seek subsidies, pay incentives, slash prices. Some combination of those may be indeed in order from time to time. But a long-term recovery must be based on genuine brand equity built by making cars consumers want to buy. We're not in the commodity business, and we shouldn't aspire to enter into it. There is a reason that there are television commercials for selling cars and not for pork bellies. And it's a model that cannot keep pace with consumer needs. We need to make better cars. We need to back them with absolutely top-flight customer service. And we need to execute both of these tasks rapidly and consistently. Until we do, it won't matter how much money consumers will have in their pockets. When we do, customers will stop buying them again. The third choice our industry faces is related to the second. If the only thing we want is a temporary uptick, we can meet growing demand by using a little bit more of existing underutilized capacity. But if our industry's goal is a lasting rebirth, we must rationalize capacity and restructure production. Globally, our industry has the capacity to produce over 94 million cars, some 30 million cars more than we typically sell. About a third of that capacity resides in Europe, where the automotive industry remains virtually the only sector that has yet to rationalize production. Europe utilized about 75% of that capacity last year, and that is a number that may shrink to as low as 65% this year. The reason, simply put, is that European manufacturers simply do not close plants. And the reason for that, in turn, is that they simply do not have to. In fact, they're often paid not to. The last time a German plant was shut down, World War II had yet to begin. And this problem coincides with European governments' apparent determination to make the automotive sector the last bastion of economic nationalism on the continent. More than half a century has passed since the Treaty of Rome was signed, yet European governments continue to act as nursemaids with domestic automakers while discriminating against those from other countries. Their motives for so doing may in fact be admirable. Preserving jobs is one, but ensuring that human needs are met is an imperative that all society must meet. It cannot be forced inefficiently and ineffectively on industries that can only do so artificially. Another reason, which is equally understandable, is pride. Automotive companies are deeply rooted cultural icons here in the US as well as overseas. National pride can indeed be both a motivator and a virtue. No less an ethical authority than Aristotle said this. But he also said that the difference between pride and vanity was whether one deserved the honors that once receives. And so it is, or it should be, with our industry. Fiat welcomes Italy's pride in our revival, because that revival was genuine, but more importantly, it was self-made. But automakers do not deserve the pride of their nations as long as governments treat them as feeble companies that need to constantly be nursed along. They will only be justified sources of pride again if they're allowed to stand and compete on their merits alone.